Hello, everybody, and welcome. Mike McGarry, President of Friends of the Carr Refuge. Our group promotes the conservation of marine turtles and natural resources on the Archie Carr National Wildlife Refuge through education, scientific partnerships, and civic activities essential to the mission of the refuge. Uh, Often we see you folks face to face at our live events, but given the current circumstances, we thought we'd do some sharing information through this venue. Many of you may know, but hopefully we have new faces who may not, that the Archie Carr Refuge spans about 21 miles of shoreline between Melbourne Beach and Wabasso Beach on the east coast of Florida, and was established in 1991 and named after the late Dr. Archie Carr Jr. in honor of his extraordinary contributions to marine turtle conservation. The refuge was designated to protect habitat for what's the most significant area of loggerhead sea turtle nesting in the world and the most significant area for green turtle nesting in North America. So through educational and fundraising activities such as this, we support activities in the refuge, both that work by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service with projects they couldn't otherwise fund, as well as outside research and monitoring activity in the refuge. So we look forward to sharing some information, educational opportunities through our outstanding speaker this evening, and more importantly, enjoying a happy hour together with you, our turtle-loving friends. So I will offer a toast to all of you and hand it off to our esteemed Vice President of our organization, Brandon Smith, and also our bartender for the evening. So thank you all, and I'll hand it off to Brandon.
Welcome. Any happy hour wouldn't be right without drinks, so we're going to kick things off with a drink called the Leatherback Lush. Before we get into that, I do want to just point out a few things to you. If you weren't aware, we also have a silent auction going on online, virtual silent auction. It's going on right now. It started about a week ago and ends this Sunday. So you can bid during the event here. You can go afterwards and bid. We'll highlight a few of the items that are going to be in the auction. So throughout the event, we'll start off with one of the ones we're using in our drink here. So Loggerhead Distillery, it's over in Stanford, was kind enough to donate to us a bottle of their blonde rum. And we're going to make our drink using that. And with that rum package, you also get one of their t-shirts and a hat. They have a really cool Loggerhead skull logo. So that's one of our items there. You can also get a watercolor hatchling that was donated by one of our board members, Quentin Bergman. And his mother is an artist who was with Art and Heart, and she painted that great psychedelic turtle that you see there. So those just a couple there. And next, we have one item that doesn't have any bids yet. So this is the only item on the auction without any bids. And if you guys are sporting that quarantine hair still, right, you're going to want this one. So our salon services from Bee Hair Apparent in Indian Harbor Beach, they've donated a $40 gift certificate for salon services. So right now you can snatch it up for half price. Take care of that quarantine hair and look your best. And additionally, we have some plantation tiki mugs. We'll be serving our cocktail in one of these tonight, but you can have your own for your own libations. Right? Plantation rum is one of our sponsors for using some of their rum in the drink today too. And then this pair of Turtley Awesome coasters from SKP Inc. Right? So you can get those to set your drink on and don't need those ugly rings on your furniture. So we'll go over some other items later. Let's get into that drink though. So we're gonna do the Leatherback Lush. We're gonna start off with a little bit of lemon juice. So usually you start off with your juices and things first. That way, if you make a mistake, you're not ruining an entire drink and throwing out the alcohol. So we put the alcohol in last. So we're going to use, this drink calls for 3/4 an ounce of lemon juice. Now, if you prefer your drinks a little bit on the sweeter side, you can dial that down to about a 1/2 ounce. So 1 lemon will give you around an ounce, depending on your lemon. So if you're making it for 2, make sure you have enough lemons there. Then we need something sweet to sort of balance that off. And so we're gonna start off with some honey syrup, right? And this is from LKC Honey. They're one of our sponsors. Now, they didn't donate the syrup. I made the syrup by using their honey. You can mix 1 part honey to 1 part water. This makes it a little easier to pour. And I'm gonna do 1/2 ounce of that honey syrup. Put that sweetener in there. And another little bit of sweet to go in there. We're, since this is the leatherback lush, leatherbacks, you may know, eat jellyfish. So we're gonna put a little jelly in here. I'm using one of my favorite fruits, raspberry. So just doing a heaping bar spoon of some raspberry jelly. And then that takes care of our sweet component. Now we want to balance out those heavy liquors we'll be using a little later with something a little lighter, so we're using some coconut water. I thought coconut would be great because our leatherbacks are world travelers. In fact, our leatherbacks that nest here in the Arctic Car Refuge, some of them actually travel all the way over to the coast of Africa when they're not nesting here. So coconuts are also world travelers. They're seeds, the coconuts themselves can float for about 30 years before sinking. So they can travel all over the world that way. So I thought it'd be a fun thing to put in our drink here. Next, we're going to go with a little bit of a sweeter liqueur. To complement that raspberry jam, we're going to do a little Chambord. So it's a raspberry liqueur. You can use any raspberry liqueur you can find, but we're going to be using some Chambord tonight. I wanted to do this too because the darker color, since leatherbacks have a nice dark color, then I want to keep a lot of the ingredients dark as well. So we do 1/2 ounce of Chambord, and then on top of that, we're going to put in some of the Plantation OFTD, which is a dark overproof rum. So 1/2 ounce of that goes into there. Now you can use any dark rum that you want. You can get locally if you can't find this, but this is becoming more and more common. It's a really good one. I'd recommend it. And then we're going to finish off with our Loggerhead Distillery Blonde Rum. This is a Jamaican style rum, so it has what they call funk to it, so a little more flavor than, say, something like a Bacardi Silver. So if you're going to go with one you're not near Sanford and you can't get this, look for a Jamaican rum. Don't just do any light rum. So you want a little more flavor in there. Okay. So once you have all of that in your shaker, you're going to want to go with a little ice. Just shake it up. Now, don't be stingy on the ice. You want to make sure you get enough because it's going to dilute the drink for you. So it's not too strong. You want to shake until your hands start to get cold. So shake till your hands get cold. And it's almost hurts to hold the shaker. Or about 10 to 15 seconds or so. So we're gonna strain this drink. So I put some fresh ice that's already in our Plantation tiki mug here. And we're gonna strain that out. Some people just do a pretty pour where you can just dump the whole ice and everything in, but I like doing strain into some fresh ice. This also will capture anything like raspberry seeds and things you might have in there if you're using not a seedless jam or jelly. A little more ice on the top of there. Then we're going to garnish it. So use some pineapple leaves. and then a little garnish of raspberries and fresh raspberries and a pineapple chunk. And then you don't want to forget your reusable straw. And that's the Leatherback Lush. Enjoy. So we'll have that recipe posted on our Facebook page. So don't worry if you didn't get a chance to write it down here. And you can go check out our Facebook and pull the recipe off there and enjoy your own later. Now, next, do you want to introduce our first speaker? So we have Ryan Welsh with us tonight. And while Ryan was attending Earlham College, he studied rock iguanas in the Bahamas. So he started his learning out in herpetology, and he continued that on after graduation, where he turned his focus over to sea turtles, specifically in the Virgin Islands. And he most recently received his master's in biology this last year from UCF, and he's used that education and experience to work with many different groups throughout the Gulf and the Caribbean. So he's worked with U.S. Fish and Wildlife, National Park Service, Nature Conservancy, Mote Marine Lab, and Sea Turtle Inc. throughout the years. And he's here to talk to us a little bit about some of that research he's done. So I give you Ryan Welsh.
Brian is about to join. We just had a little technical difficulties.
Give you time to enjoy that drink a little bit. So, there's Ryan.
All righty. Hello. Hi, Brandon. Hello to everyone. First, I'd like to thank the Friends of the Car Refuge for having me on tonight, and good evening. I unfortunately did not have the ingredients to make the Leatherback Lush, so I found a beer that worked that's called Florida Slush, and it's also a raspberry lemonade Berliner Weiss, so I think it's pretty close to what you guys are doing, so cheers, everyone. Thank you all for coming tonight. I am about to do a screen share, so as long as I can get that to work, we can get started. All right, are we good?
We're good.
Excellent. So hello, everybody. Today, I'm going to talk to you guys about is a project that we do down in the Florida Keys, and we called the talk today, Where the Big Ones Roam, which is surprising discoveries from Florida's only adult green turtle foraging grounds. So as a quick background, this is kind of the idea of what a sea turtle life cycle is like. And for those that are familiar with Archie Carr, what they normally see are what we have in the red box right here, which is we have females that are up on the beach nesting and the hatchlings they produce. And in the weeks just before green turtle nesting season starts, then if you go just offshore of Archie Carr, you'll commonly see adults, both males and females, that are mating in the waters just offshore of the beach there. And after the hatchlings hatch from Archie Carr, they go out into the Atlantic and they start up what's known as the oceanic or open ocean lost years phase. This is, the classic lost years of small turtles and sargassum mats in the middle of the open ocean. And it only in the last decade has research, especially coming from University of Central Florida, has kind of started to get insight on what these animals are doing out there. And then especially anybody in Florida, as these turtles get a little bit bigger, and we're talking kind of like a dinner plate size, they come back from the ocean and come to the nearshore habitats, reefs, rocks, lagoons, Indian River Lagoon. Any surfers or fishermen or boaters who've been in any of these shallow water reefs or worm rock areas off the Atlantic coast of Florida has likely seen small green turtles like this that are hanging out in the area. But what becomes missing is as these green turtles grow into adults, they don't hang out in these nearshore habitats anymore. They tend to kind of disappear. And for a long time, there was a big question mark about what these animals were doing. And it was just basically assumed that once these animals got to a near adult size, they left Florida waters and went somewhere else. And what they do while they're there is they start feeding, and they're feeding and feeding and feeding, and basically packing on fat until they get good and healthy enough and fat enough that they can do their migration back to Archie Carr to nest again. And in a non-scientific way, I usually refer to this as the lost decades, because they only spend a few months on a nesting beach or near a nesting beach, and then they spend a year or 2 years on these foraging grounds. But there was a big question because we had no idea where these foraging grounds were. We assumed they left. We thought maybe they went to Mexico, maybe somewhere around Central America, or maybe even more into the Southern Caribbean, but we were never sure. And it was a question for a long time about what exactly are these animals doing where they spend a lot of time. We don't know. And so in a weird twist of fate, in the early 2000s, about 2002, In-Water Research Group, the company I work for, was asked by the managers at the Key West National Wildlife Refuge to do some sea turtle surveys out there. They wanted to know about sea turtles in the Key West National Wildlife Refuge. And so we went out in this area and did surveys all over this refuge. And we found a lot of what we find on the nearshore stuff just off of Archie Carr or the Atlantic coast of Florida. Found a lot of small, dinner plate sized juvenile green turtles. And it's a beautiful area to work. And we started working more in the set of islands well west of Key West. We're looking like 35 kilometers west of Key West. So far away. A set of islands called the Marquesas. And it's one of my favorite places to be in the world. It's an absolutely beautiful area. And in the middle of this little set of islands, there's really shallow seagrass, and it is chock full of small green turtles. And it makes a great place to do research if you're looking for small green turtles. So we spent a couple years. We go out every once in a while, take this trip out there, go out and do some work with these animals out there. And I believe it was 2004, after a couple of years of doing this work, some of our bosses were out, the founders of our organization, and they got kind of bored of working in this shallow water stuff inside this. And so they decided to leave this little lagoon area, and they just decided to take their boat and just start moving west of the Marquesas. And they went out west for a while, and it wasn't so much to look for animals, but it was just to look at something different for a little bit. And when you get out west, from the surface, you don't see much. You stand out on a boat, and other than you get this beautiful blue water, the water gets kind of deep, 10, 15 feet, and not a whole lot else is going on. And so they're kind of out there looking around, and one of the board members at the time who was on the boat made a crack about, well, this doesn't really look like sea turtle habitat. I don't think we're going to find anything here. Basically, as soon as those words left his mouth, this big, giant, dark spot came out from under the boat and swam away. And everyone kind of was like, whoa, holy crap, that was an adult green. And then they started looking, and they found more, and they found more. And they kept seeing them, and they kept seeing them over and over and over again. And what was realized was that we found an adult green turtle foraging ground. And we found one that wasn't hundreds of miles away. It was in Florida waters. And this is completely unheard of and completely unknown by everybody. And so that generated a whole lot of excitement that this spot had been found. So then immediately all the wheels started turning in heads about, well, so what can we do? What do we need to do to know more about this place? And we had to start with very, very basic questions. Who are these turtles? Where are they coming from? We know that we have these big adults, but they don't spend their whole lives here. They nest somewhere. So where are they nesting? What are they? Are they actually adults? How big are they? And how many of them are out there? We see a lot when we go out, but what does that mean? How can we quantify how many are actually out in this area? So we had to start a couple kind of research projects simultaneously. And one that provides a great deal of information, but can be boring at times, is a set of surveys. And so we laid a set of lines down that every time we went to visit this spot, we would run these lines. It takes hours and hours to do, and count every single turtle we see. And so we could get an idea of how big is this foraging area. And then we can, through our counts, we can use some kind of sets of models to get an idea of how many turtles are actually out here. And then to answer our other questions of where are these turtles going, and how big are these animals, how healthy are these animals, are they in good shape? We have to do something. We have to get these turtles on the boat, physically handle these turtles so that we can get tags in them to see where they go, see if they end up, if anyone sees them again, and to do health assessments on them. And we do something that is called a rodeo. And it basically means we kind of ease up to a turtle on the boat and then take a great big giant leap off the boat into the water to try and get a turtle and then get it back up onto the boat. And we all like to think we're very gracious when we jump off of a moving boat into the water. And occasionally we are, but usually we're not. And we just end up doing weird legs akimbo in the air as we splash down and do the most embarrassing things that we can in front of each other. But we are successful at it, and we can then retrieve these animals, get them into the boat, and it allows us to get some really important information on them. We can weigh them, we can measure them, we can get an idea of how healthy they are. We can take some samples from them so we can get like blood parameters to see how healthy they are. We can take genetic samples so that we can figure out if there's any genetics that'll tell us where these animals are coming from. And so since 2006, when we finally got everything together, we've been fortunate enough to almost continually, annually be out there. And we've discovered a lot, and it's been a wonderful project to go at. So we've been running surveys, our standardized set of surveys, annually since 2006. We found out that the foraging ground is about 30 square kilometers or 11 and a half square miles that it takes up. And at any given time, there are likely 3,500, around 3,500 turtles in this area, which comes out to a fairly astonishing 300 turtles per square mile. There are very few foraging grounds in the world that have that density of animals. So this has become an extraordinarily special place. It's really hard to find something like this, not even in the United States. There is nowhere else in the United States that something like this exists. And there are very few places in the world where something like this exists. And then when you think about that number of 300 turtles per square mile, you can look at the size of these animals. So these are animals that are not nesting and they're not migrating. They're hanging out in an area and they're not doing anything except eating, sleeping, and the occasional fleeing maybe from a very large shark who may come into the area. So they get big and they get fat, and it happens fast. And so in the years that we've been doing this, we've had 106 captures of animals. The average length of the shell is 88 centimeters, which comes out to just a little bit under 3 feet long. And they come in at an average weight of 220 pounds. 106 captures of 220 pounds is a lot of very large, heavy animals that we need to maneuver up into a boat. And it's been a lot of sore muscles and sore backs afterwards. So looking at a 3 foot long, 220 pound animal, and then there's up to 300 of them all packed together in this area, just eating seagrass in this spot. And that is an extraordinarily high amount of very large animals together. And so through these tags, we have been able to get an idea of where these animals are going. And so what we have found is that these animals that are in these foraging grounds tend to nest in 3 main places. Now, the winner is Quintana Roo in Mexico. We've actually had 5 individuals that have been found in Mexico or have been tagged in the nesting beaches in Mexico, subsequently found on our foraging grounds. Second place is Tortuguero. Tortuguero is a humongous green nesting rookery in Costa Rica. We've had, I think, 2 or 3 individuals that have been tagged there and later been found on our foraging grounds. And then the near shore ones, Archie Carr, is a bit of an interesting story. We would assume, given the proximity of that, how close it is, Archie Carr is to the Florida Keys, that we'd have a lot of turtles that would just nest at Archie Carr, take a really easy migration down to the Florida Keys, and hang out and just fatten up and eat. We've only actually had one individual that we captured in the foraging grounds that then made their way to Archie Carr. She has done it multiple times. She was seen actually this year, I think just a couple weeks ago. We were informed that she was seen nesting again on the Archie Carr Refuge. And I believe 2 years ago in 2018 was the first time. So it's always interesting because these animals are actually doing, it's 500 miles to Quintana Roo and almost 1,000 miles to Tortuguero, and that they are coming internationally to feed at these foraging grounds, and that there is a Florida connection. And as of yet, it's not as strong as we thought it would be, but time may tell as we continue to tag animals, and there continues to be great work on the National Wildlife Refuge with these animals, that we may be able to establish a stronger connection between the two. And so, just to summarize, these animals are humongous. There are tons of them. They are unique, and this area is unique, and this area is worthy of as much conservation as we can get to it. It is actually not in the Key West National Wildlife Refuge. It is just on the outside just west of the outside of the boundaries of the refuge. But fortunately, it is covered in the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary. And the sanctuary has just gone through a new process of adjusting their varying zones of use within the sanctuary and what can be protected and what not. And we are working on getting this area fully protected as near an exclusion zone as we can, so that these turtles can be there with minimal human threat that's possible. No boats, no fishing, no anything like that. So these turtles can just live their happy lives of seagrass and sleep. And they are international. They are going everywhere. They are going all the way down to Costa Rica. They are going to Mexico and to Archie Carr. And so with that, I want to thank the Friends of the Archie Carr, and I want to finish on a video. And this video was taken last year. This was the largest green turtle we have ever caught on the foraging grounds, and is up there with some of the largest green turtles that have ever been seen nesting in Florida and in a good chunk of the Caribbean. She tipped the scales at just a hair over 500 pounds. She was like 112 centimeters long, so well over 3 feet long. She was a beautiful, fat, wonderful beast that we were blessed to have. And after she got worked up, she happily went on her way with 3 people struggling to get her in the water because of her size. So that is it. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching, and thank you, Archie Carr, for having me, and please donate.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for your awesome presentation. We are going to now open up the comments for our Q&A portion of today's event for Ryan. So if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments now, and we will share them with Ryan so that way he can answer any questions you have. Thanks again.
I see there was one from
Jana.
Stevenson.
Yes, we have a question for Ryan from Jana Stevenson. She says, "Thank you, Ryan. Have you noticed any significant effects on the seagrass in that area?"
Not that we have actively looked at. It's interesting that, I guess, let's see if I can go back to a photo. Yeah, this photo. So that's the dark part of this photo is seagrass. But it's hard to tell. I know that because I've been there. But a lot of the seagrass there is when you're going around, you actually don't realize it's seagrass. You think it's mostly just sand till you get down into the water and realize what you have is very, very closely cropped seagrass. It's almost just barely sticking out of the sand because there's so many animals there that are just eating so much. It's just like this perfectly smooth lawn almost, more than like the shaggy or thick seagrass beds that people may think of in more kind of pristine seagrass pastures or habitats. As of now, we have no evidence that these animals are overgrazing the seagrass to the point of collapse. There has been worry because seagrass beds can be so detrimentally affected by human impact that as green turtle populations start to recover, which like the nesting population in Florida is, that there may be so many animals starting to come back to these areas that it may initiate a collapse. But that is nothing more than some hand waving worry in the future. As of now, we've seen zero evidence that these animals are negatively impacting the seagrass.
Thank you.
I think we had a question a little earlier from Dana in the presentation too. She was wondering
Yes.
what year were the foraging ground surveys done?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
What time of year were the foraging ground surveys done?
Typically, we go in the late summer or early fall because that is when the conditions. This place is such a bit of a haul in a boat that we need fairly good conditions to even access the area, and then good conditions to do the work there. That happens best in late summer, early fall, as long as there are no hurricanes blowing their way through. But we have gone out in years past and different seasons to try and see if there's any difference, and there's, from what we can tell, there seems to be a fairly steady amount year round. It doesn't seem to have much fluctuation.
Right. Got another question from Chuck Danielson. He says, do you see large fish populations with all that seagrass?
Not really. We haven't noticed a whole lot of fish in that area very often. It is typically turtle dominated, maybe smaller, lighter fish that we are not noticing as clearly. But honestly, we don't see them in anywhere near numbers like we see these turtles. Much more sparse and spread apart when we do see them.
All right. And we have another one from Lou Ferrero, who says, how many turtles were tagged and how do you get reports of sightings?
And what was the last part of that?
How do you get reports of sightings?
Yeah, so we every turtle that we capture gets 3 tags. 2 of them are these metal tags that will go into the pads of the scales of the flipper. So that's an external tag that is, anyone who may find a turtle anywhere dead or alive may see the shiny metal tag on it, so it becomes an obvious thing to read. Then we also insert what's called a pit tag into the muscle of the flipper of the animal, and that is an internal tag, and that is very similar if anyone has dogs or cats that they've taken to a vet to get a microchip. It's basically the exact same thing. So you need a specialized reader for it, but that is a tag that will be in that animal for basically probably most of the life of that animal from the point that we tag it. And so if it comes out on a nesting beach, usually these nesting beaches have their own researchers that are out walking at night or rolling at night looking for animals, and they use the same techniques that we do to look for tags and scan for tags. And if they find something, they don't recognize it, that it's not one that they've put on. There's a centralized database that's based out of the University of Florida, that's actually based out of the Archie Carr Center for Sea Turtle Research, that we can contact them, and they keep basically a big list of all the tags that people have, and they'll put the 2 people in touch with each other.
All right. We got another question from Janet Coachella. Janet says, Ryan, I was fortunate enough to be there for the recap of the green on the refuge a month ago. It was told it was only quicksands floating along this town. What does quicksands refer to?
So quicksands is, I think, the official nautical name for the area where this foraging ground is. It's called that because in between the patches of seagrass that are there, there are also very large patches of simply just kind of white coralline sand. And the area is sandwiched basically between the Caribbean and the Gulf of Mexico. And there is this extraordinarily strong current as the tide changes, either flowing out of the Gulf of Mexico into the Caribbean or vice versa. And that tends to blow that sand and kind of form these underwater dunes that will move with these strong currents, not in a day, but will slowly get pushed one way and they get pushed the other way and move back. And I think that's how that was termed on maps probably years ago when the area was explored.
All right. We have another question from Donna Goodrow Hedger. She says, "Hi Ryan, have you seen any turtles from the Key West feeding grounds nest in the St. Joseph Peninsula Bay area or Cape San Pius area of Florida?"
Not green turtles, but if in the beginning when I talked about the Key West National Wildlife Refuge, kind of the other project we had in the area, there are adult loggerheads that feed in that area, and we have had a number of those animals then be seen on nesting beaches on the west coast of Florida. I know like the Sarasota and Minnesota beaches have had our turtles, and I believe we've had a turtle, at least one, if not more, loggerheads be seen nesting in the Panhandle, and I think it was Cape San Blas, but I don't remember exactly. But I know we have had some do that migration from that beach down to the Key West National Wildlife Refuge.
All right. So that appears to be all our questions for now. Ryan's going to be hanging out in our virtual green room, so if you do come up with questions later, we can always throw something back out to you. I'd say give a big round of applause, but unfortunately you won't be able to hear most of it. So I'll applaud you. Thank you.
All righty, thank you.
So as some of you may know, we're doing this unfortunately because we had to cancel one of our larger fundraisers for the year, our March into Turtle season that we normally do. Came out right at the beginning of the pandemic, so that was unfortunately canceled. And then due to social distancing regulations and recommendations, we were unable to host both our Sea Turtle walks and our Sea Turtle digs. So our three major fundraisers for the year had to be canceled. So this is one way that we're trying to help raise money for the Arctic Car National Wildlife Refuge and the projects that go on there. So if you're enjoying the content we have, please donate to us. You can go onto our website, carrefuge.org, and that's going to get you to a donate button. You can also donate if you're watching on Facebook and have an account. You can donate directly through the donate button on Facebook as well. And if you do decide to go to the auction, all that money goes to us too. And there's a donate button on there too. If you go and see something or don't see anything you really have to have, you can still click that donate button and send us a little donation. So with that, let's bring up a few more auction items just to show off what we have. And here's one that has piqued some interest in people. So our Sea Turtle walks are our most popular event that we do, and they sell out every year. And we typically open up the registration the first week in May. And people are hounding us for a month or more beforehand, wondering when that registration is going to open up because they want to get those dates in. They may only be down a certain time of year, or they have relatives visiting they want to bring out. So they want a certain time, and they don't want to be disappointed to find out that the date that they want is already sold out. So we've put up on the auction an early bird registration access. So as a member of Friends of Car, if you join our group, you do get a few days early bird notice where you can register before the non-members do. However, this will be registration that will be open before anyone else has access. So you will be able to pick your date out of any of the dates that we have. And so we have that early bird registration access. You'll, about a week before May starts, be able to register your date. So you can get on that and guarantee that you get the date that you want. We also have some beautiful works of art. So we showcased a few earlier. The artists have come out in full force for this event, and there's a lot of great Sea Turtle artists in the area. So the next one we have up is the Layered Wood Turtle Mandala from AVL Designs. And I know I've bid on this a couple times myself. I keep getting outbid. So that one's been quite popular, but it is a gorgeous piece that can hang on your wall. It's laser cut. The colors are amazing on it. And there's another great piece of turtle art from one of our former board members. Right? So we have the acrylic Archie Carr turtle from Fox Flow Art. So Aaron Fox used to be on the board for the Archie Carr Refuge, and I have the piece right here so you can actually see it size-wise. It's a nice little piece to hang on your wall, and it's she titled it Archie Carr Sea Turtle, and it has that beach depiction on it. So it's one of the acrylic pieces, and she does her pieces a little different than the standard acrylic pour, so she can add a lot more details and things in that you don't see in many other acrylic pour pieces. So we have those items. Now, jewelry has also been very popular in our auctions, and we didn't want to disappoint and not include some jewelry. And so the UCF Marine Turtle Research Group actually has some talented people making jewelry for us in there, and they have donated some silver drop sea turtle earrings that have been quite popular, and as well as a silver sea turtle tag necklace. So the necklace you see there, that's actually molded after an actual tag, but cast in silver. So the flipper tags are what they use to mark those turtles. Ryan had mentioned pit tags that go under the skin, like the radio tags in your cats and dogs. Before we had that technology, they relied on these pit tags. They still do that. It's a cheaper way to go than the expensive, more expensive pit tags and scanners. So they've molded one out of solid silver from an actual sea turtle. On the opposite side, it tells you that you get a reward if you return it. We aren't offering the reward on this one. It's on a silver beaded chain as well. So the chain itself is silver too, so feel free to go check that out. And both of those are from the UCF Marine Turtle Research Group that do a lot of work counting all those nests from throughout the entire refuge and beyond in our county. And then we have from one of our board members, so Peter Breslin-Byrne, he donated a Surf Risk shark clock, so combo surfer and shark in one. So if you're a fan of sharks or a fan of surfing, this is the clock for you. Tell when high tide is and when you should be out surfing. All right, so with that, I do want to give a little update on our nesting numbers. Now, I don't have the current to-date nesting numbers, but as of just a week ago, we were given the nesting numbers from the Archie Carr Refuge, and we have a total of just over 23,000 nests on the refuge. As you know, the Archie Carr Refuge is a very busy refuge. We are one of the largest loggerhead nesting refuges in our areas in the world. And our next speaker is from the other largest one in the world. So, sort of sister refuges there. But we've had a great year with our loggerheads, 15,553 loggerheads. And they're still going fairly strong. We're still seeing about 45 per night. So they're going to be on the decline this month in nesting. Their peak season was last month, but we are still getting quite a few out there. So you should see those numbers still go up. The leatherbacks, we've hit the last of the leatherback season. I don't think we're going to see any more, but we've had 51 leatherbacks total. And we're about the northernmost area for leatherback nesting. So to give you an idea, about 20 years ago, we used to only see maybe 3 or 4 leatherbacks. So to see 51 in the refuge is an amazing thing. And our green sea turtle numbers have been going up and up almost every year. This year, was a lower year, but they seem to cycle high and low years. So we weren't expecting necessarily a lot, but we still have quite a few, enough to make it the 5th highest year on record. So 7,664 green sea turtles, and they're still nesting strong at about 100 turtles per night. And they all nest throughout this next month. So we'll see those numbers go up as well. We're looking forward to that. So, want to introduce our next speaker. And unfortunately, this speaker couldn't be with us because she is from one of the largest nesting areas for loggerheads in the world that happens to be across the world in Oman. So it would have been 2 a.m. Her time, so not a really great time to give a presentation. So she was kind enough to record one for us, and we have one of her colleagues here to answer some questions afterwards. So don't worry, we still will be able to get your questions answered. But I'm going to introduce Suad Al-Harthi. She's the Executive Director of the Environmental Society of Oman, or ESO. So ESO is one of the most significant conservation projects in Oman. They launched the Loggerhead Conservation Program in Masira. And as I mentioned before, Masira is the other area in the world that has the highest number of loggerhead nests. It's us and them are the top ones. So we're sort of a sister refuge with them. They've been over here to visit us, and researchers from the Arctic Car Refuge have been over there to visit them, and it's a great partnership. So Suad actually is partnered back in 2008, partnered with U.S. Fish and Wildlife and those researchers from Car Refuge, and we're very happy to be part of that. She has also provided a well-received TED Talk. You can catch her on there if you search online. I'm sure you can find the TEDx talk on humpback whales she did. And her conservation work has awarded her Oman's Woman of the Year. And so she has been heavily involved in conservation of not only sea turtles, but other marine life. And with that, I'm going to let the video roll, and we'll hear from Suad.
And welcome to my presentation on the conservation journey of Oman's loggerhead sea turtles. I'm streaming to you from Oman, and it's a pre-recorded presentation because otherwise I would be giving this presentation at 2 a.m. Muscat time. So I have Manjula that has joined the call. She will be able to answer any questions that any of you might have towards the end of the presentation. And I'd just like to apologize for not being able to be there either live or available in real life. So to begin with, I'll give you an indication of where Oman is located. We're located in the Middle East, and we share borders with the United Arab Emirates, with Yemen, as well as Saudi Arabia. We are adjacent to the northern Indian Ocean, facing the Gulf of Oman and the Arabian Sea. And you can see that there's an island here that's been highlighted. That is Masira Island. It's the largest island in the Sultanate, about less than 20 kilometers offshore. And we will be coming back to this particular island because this is where the story began with the joint partnership between Oman and Florida. So before we dive into the journey of loggerhead sea turtles, I thought it would be good to give you an overview of the Environment Society of Oman, who we are, and what our vision and mission are. So ESO is the first and only environmental NGO operating in the Sultanate of Oman. Our vision is to help protect and conserve Oman's natural heritage. And we aim to do this by trying to influence environmentally sustainable behavior, whether that's through education programs, awareness activities, or conducting scientific research to inform conservation action. And we've got various activities such as capacity building of young Omanis so that they become more equipped when it comes to field research skills. We have various education programs, both at the school level as well as at the college and university level. We have community outreach activities that take place with farmers, fishermen, women's association, different levels of society. And because we are a nonprofit organization, fundraising is also quite important. So we have various fundraising events that take place throughout the year to raise necessary funds for our activities. And then finally, we have the research and conservation programs. And it's usually the research and conservation programs which would then be informing the content that goes towards education programs, as well as the community outreach and awareness programs. So on the research and conservation side, we have both land-based as well as marine-based programs, and I'll just give you quick highlights of some of the other programs before we get into the sea turtle conservation program. Egyptian vultures are raptors, and they have an important role that they play in ecosystems. And Egyptian vultures are considered to be endangered under the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species. And although their population seems to be declining in many parts of the world, our research has shown that particularly in Oman, this population has been increasing. And we've been trying to basically understand their breeding, their migration. We've also been tagging them to try to identify some of the potential threats to this population. Frankincense trees are located in the southern part of Oman. They have an important culture as well as heritage value. They've been used through the times for medicinal use, incense burning, and the way that frankincense is obtained is by tapping the bark of the tree, and then the resin that comes out is what ends up being used. We wanted to try to understand sustainable levels of harvesting the tree, and then start communicating this information to frankincense farmers. The population is considered to be near threatened. However, probably with further research and more data collection, we will be able to update their status. Arabian Sea humpback whale is another one of our flagship programs in Oman. We have about 20 different species of whales and dolphins that are existing here. This population is of particular interest because they are the only population of humpback whales that are non-migratory. They're isolated and tend to remain in the northern Indian Ocean. The population is estimated to have not more than 100 individuals surviving. So a lot of effort has gone into trying to understand this population, which is listed as endangered under the IUCN Red List. Coming to our loggerhead sea turtles, the Environment Society of Oman got involved in this research program in 2008. However, the story dates much further back than that. So I will take you back to 1977. And this is where the connection began with Dr. Archie Carr. He he got information that there were sea turtles that were nesting in Oman. He made a visit out here. And out of that visit, the first program for monitoring sea turtles, particularly loggerhead sea turtles on Masira Island, was developed as a joint initiative that was collaborated by the IUCN as well as WWF and the Oman Ministry of Fisheries. The program was led by Dr. Perrin Ross, and this is a photo of Dr. Perrin Ross at the Barrier Island Center last summer, giving an overview of his research back in the 1970s. So he trained fishermen to become turtle rangers, and then eventually produced a report which documented the fact that there were 4 sea turtle species that were nesting on the island. That includes the green turtles, hawksbill turtles, loggerheads, as well as olive ridleys. And particularly, the loggerhead population was estimated to have around 30,000 nesting females at that time, which made it out to be one of the largest known aggregations of loggerhead sea turtles in the world. So as it stands today, the combined population between Oman as well as Florida's loggerhead sea turtles comprises the majority of the world's nesting population of loggerhead sea turtles. So this is just a map showing the northeastern part of the island, and that red strip is about a 9-kilometer stretch of beach, which had been historically used for data collection and monitoring of loggerhead sea turtles. And when the Environment Society of Oman got involved in 2008, it was a joint partnership program between the US government and the Oman government. It was a collaborative effort between the Ministry of Environment and Climate Affairs, ESO, one of our local partners here, 5 Oceans, and several US partners mentioned here, US Fish and Wildlife Service, the National Marine Fisheries Service, as well as the Department of Interior. And in developing the program, we made sure to include the historic 9-kilometer stretch of beach, but we also, as you can see in the map showing the entire island, the yellow area shows about an 80-kilometer stretch of beach. And so we also extended the scope of the program to include island-wide surveys and basically built on the previous protocol to add additional things such as beach use surveys and stranding surveys to try to get more information. The overall objective was to try to investigate the long-term population trend of loggerhead sea turtles nesting on Masira Island. Using the data that has been recently collected and comparing it with the data that had been collected over 30 years ago, particularly for this 9-kilometer stretch of beach, our research has shown that there has been an over 70% decline in the nesting loggerhead population. This data has been drafted into a manuscript, which has been accepted for publication. It's currently in press, so hopefully that will soon become available. And what this information has contributed towards is the IUCN red listing reassessment in 2015, listing this particular subpopulation as critically endangered. So this population or this subpopulation is known as the Northwest Indian Ocean subpopulation, which is the population shared between Oman and Yemen. So in order for us to try to understand why the population is declining or try to look into various ways of taking action to try to minimize this rapid decline, it's important to understand the life history of turtles. And, you know, as most of you are aware, sea turtles spend different stages of their life in different phases of their life in different locations. So starting off with the nesting beaches where the hatchlings are born, where adult females also make their way, and eventually making their way out to the open sea. They eventually then return back to coastal areas for feeding in their juvenile phase. And then once they are ready for breeding, they make their way to the coastal areas, the coastal waters that are adjacent to the nesting beaches in which they were born. And then eventually the adult female makes her way back onto the beaches. So it's important that we look at what's taking place on the nesting beaches, what's taking place in the coastal areas, and if at all possible for us to get information from areas perhaps outside Oman's jurisdiction, then that's also important. So in order to get information beyond our beaches, we launched a satellite tagging program. And in total, 73 loggerhead turtles have been tagged over the years. And the satellite tracking helps us get information on the internesting movement. So internesting is basically the period within a nesting season. So in one nesting period, a female sea turtle might return to the nesting beach multiple times, as many as 4 times or so. And then she would have like a post-nesting migration. So after she's done nesting, where does she move to? And the information has shown that for the post-nesting migration, they mostly move south towards the Gulf of Aden, towards Yemen. The important thing with this type of data is that you are also able to try to overlay it with other potential threats, such as information that we can get from fisheries. And we have conducted interview surveys with fishermen on Masira Island to try to understand their perceived levels of bycatch when it comes to sea turtles. And then, you know, we took the study a step further to try to install trackers on their boats so that we could try to get information on the movement of their fishing activities. Having this information and overlaying it with information that's available on the location of turtles based on the satellite data, we're then able to try to map out what are the areas that are at higher risk of bycatch to try to reduce the level of bycatch. So this is, you know, an ongoing study, I would say. Looking beyond our seas to the southern Indian Ocean, there are some researchers out of IFREMER, which is the French Research Institute, in partnership with Kilonia, which is a institute located on Reunion Island in the southern Indian Ocean. They had a program in which they were tagging juvenile loggerhead sea turtles that were being caught in longline fisheries as part of longline fisheries that were taking place by European vessels in the southern Indian Ocean. And they found that once they released these turtles, about 50% of them made their way north towards Masira Island. And the genetic evidence shows that these turtles had originated from Masira Island. So this gives an indication of the importance of, looking beyond our borders and trying to look into the various threats that loggerheads might be facing in their earlier life stages. Ghost gear is not really very well studied in Oman, but we anticipate that, as in many other parts of the world, abandoned and lost fishing nets could be cause for concern. And understanding the various threats that are taking place on the beaches, we thought that we would start our conservation efforts by working locally as an initial step and try to work towards changing the behavior of people living on Masira Island. So one of the programs that we initiated in 2019 was to try to change the behavior of fishermen towards safe disposal of fishing nets. And we installed 3 bins at key landing sites and then had a lot of engagement and awareness with fishermen. And we put up flyers. We issued an awareness animation video on why it's important for you to safely dispose of your nets rather than disposing of it at sea or on the nesting beaches. And then we had a 16-week observation period to identify whether this behavior was adopted. And as an initial stage, for the first time this program had been conducted, the adoption rate was quite low at about 5.3% for the skiff vessels, which are the smaller fiberglass boats, and 2.5% for the launch vessels or the larger dhow vessels that are commonly used. So this adoption rate is definitely quite low, but we do understand that behavior change in general does take time, and we hope that we are going to be able to continue these efforts and in time be able to see more positive changes towards sustainable disposal of fishing nets. We also conducted several net cleanups between 2017 to 2020, and in total about 525 tons of nets have been recovered from nesting beaches on Masira Island. We have another net clearing activity that we hope to have take place at the end of this year. And we've also been working on some flyers, informational leaflets regarding lighting pollution, so that the community can become more aware of the impact of lighting pollution, which ends up causing hatchlings to get disoriented, and rather than making their way to the sea, they end up moving towards these artificial sources of lighting. There aren't that many homes that are developed on the beaches adjacent to the nesting beaches, but it's important for us to get this information out there, in the early stages, because things are quickly changing and developing. So I would like to now share a short video that we've put together. I think the best way for me to share Masira Island is not through a PowerPoint presentation and a small screen of my face, but to actually show footage of this island. And one of the first people that's interviewed on this video is one of the fishermen who had been trained by Dr. Perrin Ross back in the day to become a sea turtle ranger. So it's very nice to see that he's still advocating for awareness when it comes to sea turtles on Masira Island.
All right, so we're actually going to play the video through our program here. The audio doesn't come through her video that well. Let's give us one moment while we set this up.
في 81 كانت فيك الأيام كثرة السلاحف كثير وايد، لكن السلاحف كانت في ذيك الأيام مستامنة، مثل ما تقول مستامنة، ما في إنارات، ما في زوار للشواطئ وايد، ما في عدد سكان موجودين، كثرة سكان، ما حد يعتاد الشواطئ، قليل ما إذا واحد صياد أو شيء من القبيل. أما الحين ما كثرة الناس وكثرة الضياء وكثرة النار وكثرة مرور السيارات على الشواطئ، وهذه اللي يخوف السلحفة ترجع إلى البحر مرة ثانية.
فالملاحظ يعني في السنوات الأخيرة غلت نسبة أعداد السلاحف، يعني ما مثل السابق. يعني قبل 10 سنوات كانت الأعداد متوفر أكثر، حاليا الأعداد بدأت يعني تنقص بشكل ملحوظ. تأثير هذه يعني ربما تأثير هذه النقص من الإضاءة، يعني من التلوث الضوئي اللي موجود على الشواطئ وبالغرب من الشواطئ من أماكن تعشيش السلاحف، وأيضا غوارب الصيادين الموجودة على أماكن تعشيش السلاحف والسيارات، وتدهور عيشتها في البحرية يعني بسبب الشباك، بسبب الغوارب. مثلا في عمليات دهس بالغوارب في مراكب، نفس الشيء اللي مارة في المحيط.
يعني في أماكن انغرضت منها السلاحف ما تطلع فيهن، كانت أول قبل تطلع يطلعن ويبيضن ويسوون عيال ويروحون بحار ويتكاثر السلاحف. الحين في أماكن ما يطلعن فيهن السلاحف، انغرضن، انتقلن لأماكن ثانية، انتقلت الخطورة للأماكن الثانية. كل ما يمشي ينتقلن السلاحف المكان يبيضن فيه كل ما تلحقن الخطورة.
يعني في أوروبا هناك مقترحات في الأماكن تعشيش السلاحف تكون محجوزة يعني أو محجوبة في أثناء تعشيش السلاحف، يعني في أثناء الموسم مثلا من شهر مايو لحد شهر سبتمبر. فبتكون يعني هذه الطريقة يعني تكون محافظة للسلاحف يعني عن إزعاجها، سواء كان صيادين أو مواطنين أو سواح أو إضاءة وما شابه ذلك.
وبعد السياج يكون توعية كتيبات لأي واحد زاير أو مواطن أو من أي القبيل، عدم ارتياده في هذه الوقت، وإذا حب يرتدي يكون له مسافة محددة ما يوصل فيها سيارته، يوصل سيارته إلى الشاطئ أو يقعد يتعبث في الشاطئ. فهذه الأيام في شهر 7 بيكون توعية كاملة.
فيعني النصيحة هي للمواطنين الكرام اللي يرتادون الشاطئ أثناء تعشيش السلاحف ترك الأماكن نظيفة، عدم رمي البلاستيك في الأماكن المخصصة لتعشيش السلاحف، وأيضا الأخوان الصيادين نفس الشيء. يعني أي واحد يشيل عنده كيسة وأكل بعدين يرجع هذا البلاستيك ما يرميه في البحر.
ونطالب طبعا يكون تعاون بين البيئة والبلدية بخصوص تنظيف الشواطئ من شباك البحر. هذه أول شيء يسبب خطورة للسلاحف، يطبقن فيه يموتن خسارة، يعني صغار كبار تحصلن على شاطئ بحر مختنقات وميتات. من المسؤول أول شيء المواطن.
السلاحف انقرضت انقراض وايد زايد من اللازم عن قبلته الأولية، وانقصنا بسبب كله من الإهمال من الصيادين ومن المراعاة، ويوجب من الوزارة أن تراعي أزيد.
حاليا الجمعية تقوم بحملات توعية في المدارس وفي الأماكن العامة، يعني والهدف من هذا الكلام كله حماية هذه السلاحف.
وإحنا نسوي يعني دورات توعوية للمواطنين، وطبعا حتى الأمهات نسوي لهم محاضرات كيف يعني يخبرن عيالهم يوم يروحون بحار وإيش يسوون بالقشر مالهم وكذي، وما يمسون السلاحف وما يقربون من الشواطئ.
الموضوع الحماية احنا في تعاون من تقريبا أكثر من 12 سنة بين جمعية البيئة ووزارة البيئة والشؤون المناخية بشأن دراسة وحماية سلاحف الريماني في ولاية مصيرة، ونتيجة لتناقص الأعداد السابقة. الجمعية قائمة بدور كبير في عملية التوعية، الدراسات، البحوث والاستشارات التي تقدمها للوزارة بشكل منتظم، من حيث مبدأ حصر اليومي اللي يعدوه المراقبين، واللي يتم عن طريق إشراف متخصصين من الجمعية. نطالب بالاستعجال في إنشاء محمية في ولاية مصيرة لحماية أنواع السلاحف الأربعة.
Thanks for sticking around for the video. Now, we are going to take questions here in just a minute, so pop those into the chat if you have them. All right, we have a special guest with us to answer questions, but before we get into that, I do want to give you guys just sort of an update what's been going on. So through your donations so far on Facebook, we've raised over $500 through the Facebook donation link. And our auction is actually up to over $1,300 raised for conservation work on the Archie Carr Refuge. So I want to thank you guys for helping to move that along and donating your hard-earned money to help support sea turtles. I do want to highlight just a few quick auction items. The last few on here, these are some of my favorites. So we do have a beautiful piece of photography from one of our board members, Vince Lamb. So he has a piece called Vlogger and Returning. Right? And so he does amazing wildlife photography, and he donated a canvas to us. So you can hang that up in your home and have a little piece of the refuge with you at all times. We also have a kayak rental for two from Honest John's Fish Camp. So it's a 2-hour kayak rental from Honest John's. You can go tour around some beautiful backwaters in the Indian River Lagoon among the mangroves and see things like sea turtles, dolphins, and manatees. You know, the times I've been in there, there's been a few friendly manatees that like to help give you a little nudge while you're paddling along in there. And one of my favorite things from Jim, Sonny, and Rummy Masterson. So this is the man who got me on my way to mixing cocktails. And he has a tiki time teaching taste. And so what you get with this is he comes to your home, right? He will schedule time with you whenever you decide to come and mix cocktails for you and teach you how to make them. So if you enjoy making the Leatherback Lush and you want to learn a few more drinks, he will be happy to come and mix some classics up for you, and as well as maybe some new drinks as well. He has a great knowledge of tiki history that he'll share along the way, so he makes it a fun night as you learn and get to drink at the same time. So it's for you and several of your friends too, so you can have a little party and all enjoy cocktails mixed by Jim Masterson. And included with that, right, if you are the winner of that, you will not only get one of the Plantation Tiki mugs that he will bring to you with the teaching taste, but he will also provide you with this bottle of Plantation Zemaka rum. Right? And so you'll have some rum to mix some drinks. I'll be using that during the night, and I'll leave it with you to be able to make your own. So I'll teach you what to do with that. And then we have our last two items on the auction. So the next one is actually one of our most popular items next to that sea turtle tag necklace, and that is our UCF Marine Sea Turtle Research Group hat. So I was told this is one of the last existing hats out there. So there has been somewhat of a bidding war on it. This cannot be gotten any longer. So if you want to get your hands on one of these great hats, this is your last chance to do so. And then we have from a local honey producer, LKC Honey. They've donated a gift basket that includes 2 different jars of honey, different seasonal blends that they have, as well as a honey dipper and some beeswax lotion bar and lip balm. So you can have your own little honey basket to take home and enjoy. Make that honey syrup for the leatherback lush drink. Enjoy that. So that's all of our auction items out there. I want to thank you guys for those donations. We appreciate it. We're going to get into questions if we have them. So we have Dr. Angela Tiwari. She's a marine turtle conservation scientist affiliated with NOAA's Marine Turtle Ecology and Assessment Program in La Jolla, California. And she spent 5 years working with the ESO in Masira, as well as Mecca, Five Oceans, and U.S. Fish and Wildlife on the Masira Island Loggerhead Conservation Project. So let's welcome Dr. Angela Tiwari.
Hello, everybody. Good evening from California. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about the Oman project on behalf of SWAD. I think I see one question in the chat box, and that is, how successful have you been at getting buy-in from the fishermen and the public to reduce plastic and net litter? It's been a very slow process, actually. As Swad mentioned, for some of the smaller boats, they've got only 2% of those boats to dispose of their discarded nets into the bins. And for the larger boats, it was a slightly higher percentage, but it is still a very low participation at this time. But like all behavior change, as Swad also mentioned, we hope that the participation by the local community will increase over time as the project expands into addressing more litter and net disposal issues, as well as we expand our work with the local fishermen to try and reduce bycatch in the local fisheries.
I'm not seeing any other questions currently, but I have a question up. One just popped up. There we go.
That's a good question, and I'm afraid only Swad can answer that, about how much of the work is funded by government versus public fundraising. So we will have to put that question to her, because that's an internal ESO question.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
With the partnership with Florida and Masira, what things were learned between the two, either that we learned from you or they learned from us?
So I can certainly speak on behalf of the Oman team. They went back truly very enthusiastic and energized by their visit here to the Archika Refuge in Florida. They were very impressed by the way the monitoring of the beach is carried out, the level of detail in data collection, just the way the whole system is organized and what an impact it has on the conservation of loggerheads in Florida. And so they've gone back with lots of good ideas, and we're discussing how to implement some of that in Oman now.
Great. All right, so we have a question from Kendrick Hill. Is the litter we saw covering the beach a regular occurrence in Oman, or only at specific beaches?
This work was only done on Masira Island, so it is a pretty regular occurrence on Masira Island. I personally have been to one of the other islands where loggerhead nesting takes place in much lower numbers. They used to get about 3,000 nests a year. It's called the Halaniyat Islands, closer to the Yemen border. And on those beaches, I didn't see the level of net on the beaches as you see on Masira.
The questions are starting to come in hot and heavy now. So we have from Nick Pigeon, are there any unique challenges doing conservation work in Oman when compared to the US?
Yes, it's a very different cultural setting. So one has to be culturally sensitive when working in Oman, and it requires a different mindset and different framework for working there.
All right. And then Kathy Lenhart asks, do people eat turtles or eggs over there?
There is some low level of poaching. We don't know exactly how many eggs are taken, but it's not, as far as we know, it's not for personal consumption. but it is to feed their camels. And we're trying to figure out whether this is a growing trend or it's just something that occurs at a very low level.
Okay. And Kendra Cope asks, and since ESO has begun doing community presentations, have there been any movements from the community to clean up the beaches for nesting turtles?
Not as far as I'm aware. I assume, Kendra, you're asking whether they do it without any instigation or organization by ESO. I don't believe so.
Yeah. And then Ryan Chabot says, what magnitude of nesting by the other three species, aside from loggerheads, occurs on Masira? I knew of the large loggerhead rookery, but wasn't aware of nesting by the other three.
Yes, there are the three other species nesting on Masira, but their populations are not as large as the loggerhead population. They're much smaller. In fact, for the green turtle, the larger nesting population is in Ras Al Had, which is on mainland Oman. For the hawksbill, the large population is in the Damaniyat Islands. So yes, while there is some nesting by the other species on Masira, it's not as large as in some other parts of Oman.
Then Lou Ferrero asks, are there efforts to educate students in schools about the plastics, nets, beach closings, or cleanups?
Yes, there are some efforts. There are campaigns and education programs for the schools.
All right. I'm not seeing any other questions in the chat, so I want to thank Dr. Mandela for her time with us and joining us from California. Saw a lot of emoji applause for Ryan earlier, so let's give both Swad and Dr. Mandela the same love and some applause there.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having a presentation from Oman as part of your event today.
Thank you. This was amazing. I mean, it's great to be able to bring in speakers that we wouldn't normally be able to see where we're doing a lot of events. So I think even when we do get back to normal and start seeing people in person, we still want to continue some of these, and hopefully you guys will join us again and hear speakers from across the world that we wouldn't normally be able to get here in Florida.
Thank you.
Thank you. So before we wrap this up, I do want to have one of our other board members speak to you briefly. So he's asked to have just a few minutes here to talk about one of our other projects we're doing. So since we haven't been able to get out and educate the people through our turtle walks like we did, we are doing a new education project, and our board member Vince Lamb, who donated that beautiful logger photo, he has been helping to spearhead this project, and I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about it.
Good evening. I'm Vince Lamb. I've been actively involved with the Turtle Walk and later the Turtle Digs programs on the Carr Refuge for at least 10 years. And when we were unable to do the Turtle Walks, of course, that was quite a blow. But then we were hoping to do the Turtle Digs, which are daytime nest excavations to show people what happens in a turtle nest and how successful the hatching rate is and that sort of thing. So when we were unable to do that, our team decided that we wanted to make a video, and we wanted to share with the followers of the Friends of Carr some information about the 2020 turtle nesting season in the Carr Refuge. The still image you're seeing there is one of our volunteers. Just a couple of days ago, we located a couple of nests to be able to record an excavation tomorrow. We have to locate the nest and then wait 3 days and then come back to excavate it. So Diane here has located a nest, and she's going to put a stake there so that when we come back tomorrow morning to hopefully excavate this nest, that the stake will still be there and we can find it. So we're making what we hope will be an interesting short video that it'll be out there free on our website and on Facebook for everybody to watch. and it'll provide information about the turtle nesting season, and it'll provide some insight into nest excavations and why they're important, what we can learn. It's costing us $1,500 to produce this, and so far we've raised $1,300. So we're looking for 2 more sponsors at $100 a piece if anybody feels so inclined. I should also say an interesting part of our video will be drone footage provided by the Barrier Islands Center. Ray Mojica has allowed us to use some of his drone footage that shows a drone flying over the beach with turtle tracks pretty prominent on the beach. So we're excited about this project, and we look forward. You should be able to see it in probably a month to 6 weeks or so. We look forward to getting your feedback. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Vince. So just $200 left to help fund that video. So if you would like to donate for that, just put a little note in your donation that you want it to go towards that video. Make sure that it goes towards that project. We have a lot of other great projects that go on throughout the refuge all year long, and we try to help out whenever we can as the refuge needs and also the partners within the refuge, because we are in a unique type of refuge where it's not just U.S. Fish and Wildlife that helps to manage these lands. So we have cooperation from the federal government, state government, from county government, cities, and nonprofits. So it is a very unique area, and these partnerships have helped us to make this a wonderful refuge. So we like to help out all the partners, and we try to support them in whatever they have needs. So feel free to hit that donate button if you haven't already. And hopefully you can join us on the next one of these we'll do. We haven't set a date yet, but I would look for it maybe in the next couple months when we can wrangle up some other speakers. And I do want to thank all our sponsors for this, for the auctions. We have Plantation Rum, SKP Inc., AVL Designs, Honest Jones Fish Camp, Foxflow Art, P. Hare Parent, the UCF Marine Cathedral Research Group, OKC Honey, and the Loggerhead Distillery in Sanford, as well as Art in Heart. So thank you guys for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon. And you have until Sunday to bid on those auction items. So if there's something you see that you just have to have, go ahead and put those bids in, and we will ship it right to you, so you don't have to worry about picking it up. The shipping is included. You'll see that listed in the auction description there, and we hope to see you again soon. Thanks for joining us.
People think that I was Dr. Carr's student, Professor Carr's student. That's not so. I was trained as a PhD student by a colleague of Dr. Carr's. I sort of had an introduction to Dr. Carr, and I got to know Dr. Carr and his wife, Marjorie Carr, who was a true force for environmental conservation in Florida. And Dr. Carr and I became good friends from then on. He used to call me Don Luis Amigo. A lot of Dr. Carr's work with sea turtles was in the Caribbean and in Costa Rica and places like that. Not a whole lot of work on Florida beaches, but those of us who are privileged to work here on the Carr Refuge are just so pleased that the Fish and Wildlife Service kind of bent their own rule a little bit. They normally don't name national wildlife refuges after people, and named this one after Dr. Carr, and we who are privileged to work here are so pleased. Now that Kate Mansfield is coming into the picture, as I said a while ago, she represents an elevation of the sophistication of the science, and I'm glad for that, because my leading claim to fame has been perseverance. Walking on the beach, plotting in the sand, digging in the sand, getting the numbers, getting the numbers, getting the numbers. But now we are entering a new phase, and that's good because we have a pretty good understanding of what the numbers have been doing for the last 30 years, and now we can continue to use that to build our understanding of how to deal with the threats. Especially the threats out there in the ocean. It's the great core of students who have come through the program, and many of them gone on to positions, responsible positions in county, state, and federal agencies. For example, the current national coordinator for sea turtles for the National Marine Fisheries Service in Department of Commerce in Washington is someone who started with us on this beach. And Blair Witherington got his start right here on this beach with our group, and I could go on and on and on and on. These are all students that came through my courses at UCF, vertebrate zoology, herpetology, and mammalogy, and then came on to work on the sea turtle project. Not all of them are in sea turtles now, of course, but they're almost all of them are in some environmental or conservation program of some kind. And we've been blessed with highly motivated, really capable students down through the years, and that will probably be my legacy if there is such a thing.